mode.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending upon your time zone. I'm Dave Rubenstein, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times, and I want to welcome you to today's webinar. It's called Lessons from the Trenches, Achieving Massive Scale with AWS. Before we get started, I have a couple of very brief housekeeping announcements. There will be a live Q&A following today's presentation, so feel free to ask a question at any time during the presentation by going into your control panel, selecting the Questions tab, typing it in, and hitting Submit, and we'll get to as many as time allows. Secondly, this webinar is going to be available on demand within the next day or so on the sdtimes.com website for you to play over again, share with friends and colleagues. Now, to get us started, I'm going to turn it over to Mike Hughes of OutSystems. Mike, take it away.
Great, thanks, Dave, and thank you for having us today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. As Dave mentioned, we'll be doing Q&A at the end, so type your questions into the panel, and we'll try to get to those. I'll introduce our speakers momentarily, but just in terms of the flow for today, I'm with OutSystems. I'll talk a little bit about just kind of low-code platforms and the problems they solve, but the bulk of the conversation today will be about the journey to cloud as an organization. We've been around for 15, 16 years now. So we went through this journey ourselves, and it's a journey that kind of has no end, right? We're constantly evolving. So we want to share kind of our experiences with you, and we have representatives from AWS as well. So I think with this cast of characters, there's a wealth of experience available to share with you. So very excited to introduce our guest speakers. So on the OutSystems side, Hugo Fregoso, who runs our cloud operations. And then we have Yolanda Azcunaga and Ignacio Garcia, who goes by Nacho, who are solution architects with AWS. So again, a wealth of knowledge to be shared with you today. So let me just level set a little bit for those who may not be familiar with low code and the problem it solves and why we kind of needed to make this kind of transition into the cloud. So as we look at organizations globally, everybody really is faced with this challenge of having to transform, right, to remain competitive, to remain in business in many cases. And this is not obviously a simple process. Many barriers exist. A lot of organizations we deal with have huge backlogs of projects, right? They really have a situation where they can't get new applications, new innovation out quickly enough, and they're dealing actually with a lot of maintenance as well of existing systems, which really reduces the time for innovation, which is particularly important in this day and age, right, as organizations are looking to differentiate from their competitors. And with the evolution in technology, it's difficult to find, in many cases, the resources that you need, right? If you're building the latest and greatest mobile app, right, it's costly, it's difficult to find the necessary skill sets to be able to do that. So there are many barriers that organizations face. And this is not going to get better anytime soon, right? The demand for apps is increasing. If you look at some of the recent analyst reports, right, they're predicting a 5x deficit, right, in talent, right, versus demand for new applications. More and more platforms, as we're using our Series and Alexas, right, and thinking about all of these new forms of interaction, right, we know that's going to add more complexity, more data as we think about all of the different web services that we're using as we build solutions now, right? This is truly an ecosystem, not just a point solution. And the technology itself is a moving target. The frameworks themselves are changing on a regular basis, but there is one thing you can rely on, one constant, which is that there will continue to be more change, right, which may not be quite such a silver lining. So there are challenges for organizations looking to transform, and there really needs to be a better way to drive then this enterprise digital transformation. And this is where low code fits in. So low code is really all about speed, agility, and adoption. So by dramatically reducing application development time, we believe organizations are able to tackle those backlogs, get those applications out that the business is demanding. Agility in the sense that with low code, what you build can be changed very, very quickly. So you're less likely to create those situations where you have significant technical debt, right, and perhaps a very large system where it's become too complex to change, right? Which a lot of organizations are faced with that challenge. And adoption, being able to rapidly iterate and deliver the actual solutions that the business needs, right? Going backwards and forwards 5 to 10 times faster than traditional coding, so that organizations can very, very quickly test out new ideas and be very, very innovative. So low-code development itself rather is very visual, right? So you're using models to create applications. Integration is very visual also, dragging and dropping connectors to different types of cloud services or backend databases. So it's all about speed and flexibility in terms of being able to create the next consumer-grade app or an employee application that works on the tablet offline, or even building mission-critical core systems that truly run the business. So today's low-code platforms, in some situations, are truly enterprise-grade, right? And can be used. You can put confidence in them to be able to run your business. So that's just a little bit of a primer. As I mentioned, we've been around for 15, 16 years or so now. And there was a point at which we realized, right, we need to be able to provide our platform, our rapid development platform, in a cloud capacity. So I'm going to ask Hugo to kind of take us back a little bit to the beginning of our journey, right, and how things kind of evolved for us.
Thanks, Mike. So actually, we just onboarded the cloud and this whole AWS partnership around 5 years ago. So we had an expanding customer base that had very diversified needs in terms of infrastructure. And many of our customers were lacking the immediate operational time or infrastructure capacity to onboard a new product such as our systems. So back then, we evaluated several cloud providers, and the only one that had the presence to support all our customers and all the non-functional requirements that are intrinsic in the cloud was AWS. So we adopted AWS at that stage and went through continuous improvement of our cloud product since then.
Great. So I think if we look back, right, it was very much a question of aligning our strategy right with the needs of our customers, right? That was kind of our starting point. As we look at kind of the breadth of what AWS provides, it can be quite overwhelming. Knowing where to start, understanding kind of the resources available. So Nacho, can you step us a little bit through kind of how you recommend people think about beginning their cloud journey?
Sure, thanks. So AWS has more than 90 services, and right now even more after reInvent. In terms of compute, storage, networking, databases, deployment, Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, almost everything you can imagine. So to start learning about this and what AWS can offer you, I think the best choice is to go to the Getting Started Resource Center. You can easily browse by use case, depending on your needs, and then find the AWS services that can help build your projects. Inside of this resource center, you can also find some 10 minutes videos tutorials that you can use to start working on AWS services. It's, for example, a good way to start creating your own account and testing the basic service from AWS. You can also benefit from the free tier that AWS offers, and then have some hands-on experience with the AWS platform products and services.
Great. Yeah, so very easy. We've got the URL here as well for organizations just to begin their cloud journey. I'm sure a lot of people on the line have already been looking into this and at various stages of their journey. But for those who are in the early stages, some great resources available to understand the breadth of what's available and to get some good starting points. So let's kind of switch back to Hugo and specifically the OutSystems journey. So when we go back and look where we were 5 years ago, we had we had a very established technology stack. Let's talk a little bit about kind of how we tackled this journey ourselves. Hugo, can you kind of take us through the evolution that we experienced?
Actually, back then, I was not in OutSystems back then, but I know much of the team. And it was a pretty aggressive project in terms of timeline, 2 months. And so we just the best technologies that new and well-established, meaning from AWS, meaning RDS and EC2 to cover the compute and the database, and also the satellites like Elastic Load Balancer and VPC. But this was much of the simplest approach as possible, meaning we just pushed an on-prem configuration of our product to the cloud, and we've tried to automate as much as possible. And the technology mapped quite well, meaning when you think of virtual machines, you go to EC2. We have Chef server to orchestrate the operating system. We've just put the Chef server on AWS over EC2. The only more bold step there was onboarding the RDS database managed service. And this was for, we didn't want to have the complete control over the database. The RDS service from day one gave us, for example, automatic backups and high availability out of the box without us having to manage that complexity. The bottom line is that after this approach, where we really pick up the great product that we have and made it a multi-region, high available infrastructure and platform, the customers really started to show to come into the cloud, meaning our product adoption was from the past years a key factor for OutSystems success. We reduced drastically the time to value for our customers from weeks they would have to go through creating infrastructure to hours. We manage that for them and just give them the endpoint so that they can have our product.
Great. And then, as you reflect on kind of how things have evolved since that time, so kind of bring us up to speed on where we are now with the evolution of our use of AWS.
Sure. Like I said in the beginning, we started with 5, 6 core services. We now run a more cloud-native infrastructure and a global one, and we have been using 26 different AWS services. They have 90, so we are around 30% of usage in terms of AWS services. But we run YouTube and YouTube. We run more than 3K of EC2 machines in behalf of our customers. This is only the customer part of the infrastructure. And we support with this every customer on every 52 countries that they serve. We serve them over 22 verticals, and we also have a great global partner network and over 160 community members worldwide.
Great. So it's safe to say that things have grown extremely quickly. We're running obviously a very large-scale global operation now, and a cloud-native approach to helping support our customers. Let's turn it back to AWS and Yolanda. If we think about the journey that organizations take, let me just close out Hugo's part here. So obviously we wanted to focus on what we know best, right, which is the application development and the life cycle. We're not a world-class infrastructure and services organization, right? That's where we obviously rely on AWS. Yolanda, kind of step us through the journey then that the organizations take. I realize each organization may be coming from a different starting point, but how do you view that journey? How do you recommend organizations think about proceeding in the cloud?
Well, the path to cloud adoption is unique for every customer. However, we can see that the customer journey to the cloud typically involves four phases: project, foundation, migration, and reinvention. So you have to find in which phase you are and work from there. On the project phase is when you get familiar and experience the benefits of the cloud for the first time. So it's really important to focus on education and training to increase confidence and to reduce concerns. And here you start doing like a small proof of concept, so you get familiar with the technology. When you are familiar, you then move to the foundation phase, when you build the foundation to scale your cloud adoption. So this phase includes creating a landing zone where you get a pre-configured, secure, multi-account AWS environment, so you can create all your projects following that pattern. And then you set an operation model and establish a security and compliance framework. So all the new projects and our applications are compliant with the requirements of your enterprise. When you have your foundation ready, normally the next step is to start the migration of existing applications. So for that, we really recommend to do an application portfolio assessment. That is when you evaluate all your applications and you define which are the easiest to start migrating. So you get familiar, and when you get experience, you can go from there to move the more complex applications. And when you already have your operations in the cloud is when the reinvention and optimization phase came. And then is when you start to take advantage of the flexibility and all the capabilities of the cloud, and you start putting attention in innovation and change your applications to use all the tools that we provide. So it's not only about migration, it's about optimizing your workloads for the cloud. If you want to know more about these stages, there's a really interesting tool in our website, which is called the Cloud Transformation Maturity Model, that can help you to assess in which phase you are, depending on your maturity, and guide you through the next steps.
Great, yeah. So the Cloud Transformation Maturity Model, something people should check out if they're considering this journey, or if they're already on the pathway and perhaps looking to understand kind of the next steps. Yolanda talked a little bit about kind of the last stage, reinvention, optimization. I think within OutSystems, we probably consider ourselves to be in this stage, which is it's an interesting one for us. I think when people think about cloud, automation certainly is something that comes to mind, right? We're running an operation. We want to make sure that operation is efficient. So looking for ways to automate is important to help in that regard. Hugo, we've done some pretty interesting stuff around automation. Can you step the audience a little bit through kind of why our approach was a little bit perhaps unique and different?
Any customer has his strong suits, meaning he has maturity over a given technology. And like I said in the beginning, we've just picked our best technology and used it. Ours or external third vendors that we were used to work with. One cool use case, like the chicken and an egg problem, is that we use our own product to orchestrate the entire infrastructure, and that, why is that? We had a fairly mature product in terms of REST integration and BPT, business process modeling, within our product. So we started because it was our product. We started from scratch, basically in our own product, integrating with AWS and orchestrating the entire infrastructure. And the goal from day one was clear. It's full automation, and that full automation and pushing as many functionality as possible to our customers in self-service really enables to provide a reliable infrastructure over time and time again. It's not a human that is prone to errors to deploy an infrastructure. It's a machine that if it has any bug, it's corrected and it's cross-applied in the correction to the entire infrastructure. So this gives us a very good operation baseline to run the entire infrastructure at scale.
Great. So, we're obviously lucky enough to be in a situation where we have this very powerful business process transformation engine. It made sense, of course, for us then to leverage that using the REST APIs on our side, right from a deployment of applications and deployment of infrastructure on the AWS side. So, I think in terms of lessons learned, if you are a cloud service provider and you're, considering ways to automate, right, look at your own technology and see if there are interesting opportunities that might allow you to introduce more automation. Let's jump back to Nacho on the AWS side. For organizations that are thinking about automation, what are kind of some of the techniques, the tools that you recommend for organizations to look at?
Sure. So first thing I will recommend, I will say that AWS, we think that the infrastructure of the customer as well as our own is infrastructure as code. So to be able to run this code, we recommend to use the service AWS CloudFormation, which is a service that creates a collection of AWS resources that are related to each other, and you can provision them in an orderly manner and then get a predictable output of that. So, for example, you can interconnect different resources like a single EC2 with RDS or to much more complex ones like different lambdas or different other services from AWS. In CloudFormation, we have two main components here, which are the template, which is a JSON file or a YAML file, where you describe all your AWS resources and that you need to deploy, and then you have the stack, which is basically the actual instantiation of these AWS resources, and it's created and managed on a single unit of instances. And the good thing about CloudFormation is that you can reuse it as many times as you want. You can run it on different regions. You can run it even on different accounts if you want. So it's reusable, and that is a key component here. Good thing about CloudFormation as well is that you have sample templates that you can find on our website, where you can see different technologies already in place with the best practices and in terms of high availability, redundancy, scaling out, and alarming. And you can also modify them in terms of your business. The second thing that you should consider when automating on AWS is our service is monitoring. Okay, and for that we would love you to use CloudWatch, which is the service that you can use to get metrics of your AWS resources. For example, you can get EC2 CPU. Then you can get, for example, our ELB request latency or SQS for queuing system length, the queue length. Okay. Okay. You can even also either create your own custom metrics or get metrics about of your AWS bill, which is really good. So then, with these metrics, what can you do? You need to automate. Okay. So for that, you can create alarms based on those metrics, and configure to perform one or multiple actions based on those alarms. For example, let's say that you have a queue that arrives too much. Okay, so you can create an actions to perform to create new workers to consume from that queue. That's a real example, by the way. And for that, you use a simple notification service, which is another service from AWS. And finally, within the CloudWatch ecosystem, you have CloudWatch events, which is a way to react on near real time from a streaming of events that happens on your AWS account. Apart from that, you have AWS Config.
Yeah, AWS Config is also a really interesting tool when we talk about automation because it helps you to ease the process of meeting compliance requirements. AWS Config provides you with an resource inventory, configuration history, and configuration change notifications. So it's really easy to enable security and governance using these tools, as it helps you to determine whether your configuration changes are compliant. And also, if you combine it with AWS CloudTrail, which is a service that records API calls, you can easily set alarms for example, when someone changes their password or executes a certain action in your account, you can easily monitor what is going on.
Great, thank you. So lots of pieces of the puzzles here, right? To consider as you think about automation and scaling. And certainly, we've adopted these pieces within our cloud native architecture. So let's get a little bit more specific about kind of what this looks like for a customer of OutSystems. So we provide a low-code development platform. Organizations can sign up for our cloud offering. But what does this actually look like if I'm a new customer coming in? What do I actually get within our cloud? Hugo, can you kind of fill us in on what that looks like to begin with, at least?
Sure. This is pretty much the same drawing that I showed in the beginning with a clear mapping of the services. Basically, we rely deeply on RDS and elastic load balancers to automatically escalate horizontally the infrastructure if needed. And have high availability on the database and on the front ends. And we segregate every environment data and infrastructure within a global VPC, basically. And
Great.
If you can move to the next slide. From this very simplistic approach, we then, through automation again, we can just go to the full-fledged of the Sentry offer, the SOC 2 Type 2 compliant offer, where basically we use a set of third-party software and also additional AWS services to be sure that the CM, DDS, and DPS protection is in place, and this is really done through an automated way, meaning you can convert each flavor of the infrastructure as simply as a push of a button to convert a regular infrastructure to a multi-region setup where every region is isolated, is in its own VPC. The customers can have multiple VPNs to the multiple data centers and endpoints of these VPCs. So we can run pretty complex workloads on behalf of our customers. And like I said, we all run this throughout what we call the management infrastructure. It's like the same infrastructure. It's a SOC 2 Type 2 compliant infrastructure that orchestrates everything. Of course, we have a set of well-known third-party vendors that support all the orchestration and the updating and the patching and the security patching and logging of the entire global infrastructure. So it can go from really, really simple to really, really complex. The good thing is that the customer doesn't know this. The customer, all the entire management of and the heavy lifting of this infrastructure is done between our orchestration and AWS infrastructure.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, that's really key for us, right, in terms of providing that level of abstraction. I'm sure many people on the phone are coming from situations where they're perhaps thinking along similar lines, right? They want to offer a service, which for us is a low-code development platform, and they want to offer that in obviously a very scalable way. The non-functional requirements that we talked about at the very beginning that drove kind of our decision and our journey into the cloud around security and reliability and multi-regional support, right? Because we're dealing with global organizations are all very important. But it's equally important to be able to kind of abstract organizations away from that complexity in order to be able to provide our service, right? Our customers want to be able to build applications quickly. That's their goal. So being able to provide them with that service and removing the other complexity is important. And we can see here kind of how complex it can really become, right? As we add in management services around this and deal with all of the security for SOC 2 and so on. So there's a lot to this, and this wasn't obviously our day one in the cloud position. This is something that we've evolved to over time. So I'm sure, you know, as for those on the call, you're all coming from kind of different types of situations and maybe thinking about, you know, solving different types of challenges. So, you know, in terms of architectures, approaches, you know, there are a lot of different pieces, as we've seen, to AWS. So Nacho, you know, what would you recommend for organizations to try and understand the different kind of architectural patterns and so on? What are some good places, some good assets to leverage for those, again, in the process of adopting cloud?
Yeah. So we do have our reference architecture data sheets that you can use within the web page that you can see in the slide. These data sheets shows you different architectural references that you can use depending on your workload, okay, and take fully advantage of the AWS cloud infrastructure. So this visual representation that you see here, for example, in this example here in the slide, is a VPC, virtual private cloud, where there are different subnets, some of them public, some of them private, and all of them with their own NAT instance or NAT gateway. And that's kind of the best approach that you can use for this kind of reference architecture. Of course, the good thing about this is that you can change it as much as you want depending on your business needs, and just take it as a reference for your future architecture. And another good thing is that some of these reference architecture come with what is called a quick start, and as we mentioned before, cloud formation stacks that you can easily deploy to see how it works. For example, we have some of them for SAP HANA. So if you don't know how to start with SAP HANA on the cloud, you can actually just click and run one of them and see how it works, how everything is fixed, is tied together, and then replace the components that you don't need and put some of them that are not there.
Great, yeah, and the URL is here for the quick start reference deployments. You know, I was flicking through that earlier. Just, you know, lots and lots of different options, and obviously with the ability to immediately deploy those, very, very easy and fast to test those out. As we think about architecture, you know, how else? What other tools, what other recommendations would you make to customers as they think about their architectures?
Yeah, well, it's not only when they think about it, it's when it's already there, okay? Let's say that you already have your architecture on AWS. As we mentioned before, you have to iterate on that. So one of the good resources that you can use is the well-architected framework, okay? Which is it's a way to review your design and find out what needs to be changed, okay? The well-architected framework has been developed by cloud architects in the most secure, high-performance, resilient, and efficient infrastructure possible for their applications. So basically, it covers 5 pillars, as we can see in the slide. First of all, security, which basically is the pillar that focuses on protecting information and systems. The operational excellence, focus on running and monitoring systems to deliver the business value and improving your processes as well. Then we have the performance and efficiency, as the name says, is basically a way to use your IT and computing resources efficiently. And then we have the cost optimization, which is the perfect way to avoid using having unneeded costs, and also to see where the money is being spent, and for example, use the exact size for your results. And finally, we have operational excellence, which is running and monitoring systems to deliver this value that we mentioned before.
Great, which I think is a great segue to kind of the next section. So we've been focused very much on technology, right? If we're thinking about achieving massive scale in the cloud, there are a lot of different pieces to the puzzle, putting them together in the right way, understanding the journey in the various stages, tools like the well-architected framework to validate that you have a solid architecture, right? So there's a lot in place from an architectural point of view, from a technical point of view, but it's more than technology. Hugo, kind of step us through. We're running an operation, so step us through the other elements then of our operation, the things that really enable us to scale kind of beyond the technology.
Sure. We are a product company, OutSystems, and we've tried to keep it a really simple and reliable operation, even though we are edging for huge scale. And the main core pillar is that if you use AWS box, you have full customer control of the infrastructure, but then comes the complexity that we are trying to ease. And on the other side, you have vendors like Salesforce, which is all the infrastructure is controlled by the provider. We've tried to stick in the middle, meaning the sweet spot between customer control that they have over some aspects of their infrastructure and our own control of the heavy lifting of managing the cloud infrastructure. And basically, we can resume this by having a very fixed set of managed service. Actually, there are 52 managed service, like a service catalog that our customers can activate on different on their journey to the cloud. By example, 15 of them are database related, like a database restore or a recovery of a point-in-time recovery of a specific database. But the majority is fully self-service and automated. And with this in mind, the team basically is their responsibility is just to keep lights on, have great performance, security, and so on. And coming back a bit for the beginning, we are a product company, so actually maintenance tasks on the database, it's not done by the operational team, it's done directly on the product by R&D, and then cross-applied to the entire infrastructure. So it's really easy to maintain a global infrastructure with a relatively small 24/7 team. But we also rely much on AWS amazing support. In our case, it's enterprise support level, but they really are a key factor. We can rely on our end of the product, and if any customer has an infrastructure issue, we can rely on AWS side to solve that in a timely way.
Great. So it's about more than the technology, and as Hugo mentioned, one of the approaches we took was to really provide a catalog of managed services, right, to help us again with a scaling of our customers, rather than giving them complete control, right, which introduces complexity, versus giving customers no control, right, which then kind of reduces flexibility. So it is, as Hugo said, a balancing act, and it also requires people and processes, right? We've been doing this for a while now, and we continue to evolve our processes to find other ways of creating optimization, ensuring scale, and very much investing in our people, right? Making sure that our teams understand how this operation works, right? And it runs 365, 24/7, right? So this is a constant thing. On the AWS side, as we think about kind of beyond the technology, perhaps, governance models, different organizations will kind of have different types of needs there. But what kind of tips would you kind of provide to organizations looking to define kind of their own cloud governance model?
Well, every customer is different, but what we are seeing is that many AWS customers have begun establishing centralized teams. So large enterprises generally centrally manage cloud operation at some level. However, it's really important to find the optimal balance between central management and decentralized control, so you don't lose the flexibility and the agility of the cloud. So we are seeing two sets of cloud governance roles. We have like a management service organization, normally in enterprises, which is an entity created to provide management and administrative services to other organizations within the company, or it could be a partner. And these responsibilities can include account provisioning, networking tasks, security auditing, hosting of SaaS services, like, for example, directory services, and also billing and cost management. And also, we see another set of roles, which are the workload owners, which are the ones that are directly responsible for deployment, development, and maintenance of the applications. As you can see in the slides, you can see two examples of the account strategies that include like a central account to centralize some tasks. In the first example, you can see an InfoSec account where you collect all the logs from the different accounts of the different departments in a central account, so your security department can check these logs. And also, in the other example, you see a central IT account where we are collecting also the logs, and we are managing all the identities from this account, but also we have like a service catalog, so we define which services can the rest of the account use that are according to our requirements and the framework the company is following. So that way you can combine both things, the good things about getting flexibility and agility, but don't losing control of the resources you are deploying.
Great. So, in the same way that there obviously is flexibility and recommendations around architecture, around all the different services available from AWS, also a lot of thought leadership and patterns to follow, beyond technology, right? As we think about governance models, all of these are important aspects of scalability, right? Just having scalable technology is not the complete picture, right? It's really the combination of all of these different aspects that have enabled us to scale and will allow you to scale as well. And one last section, and this has been extremely important for us, is that this is a journey, but it's not a journey we've been taking alone. We've been, as Hugo said, we've been relying on our relationship with AWS to help us along the way, and that's really been a significant part of our success. So Hugo, kind of finish us out here with kind of some reflections on our experience with AWS and the benefits that we've received as part of that partnership.
Sure. It's been quite a while working with AWS, and basically the end message is that in every single step they will support any customer growth, in our case OutSystems. And we've upgraded support from business support to enterprise support, and with that and with the AWS and OutSystems R&D collaboration, we could really tap on innovation and new services and having access to key members on service teams that really help us out designing the new architecture for our product. And basically it's like a constant journey where we as of time we don't even know that there is an infrastructure running, and key members of AWS team are seen as internal members at OutSystems, meaning they will chat over Slack any hour, basically. So this great support really enables a product company to innovate and just leave the heavy lifting to AWS.
Great. Yeah, so that's I think it's fair to say, right, that we've really taken advantage of this enterprise support program. This has been something that's been instrumental in helping us make sure that we get responses very quickly to that point where we don't even notice, right, that we're running on the infrastructure, right? It becomes that seamless. On the AWS side, step us a little bit through then the enterprise support program. Some people on the call may not be familiar with the sort of support that is available, which obviously has been instrumental in our success. Help us understand a little bit kind of how that's set up.
Well, first of all, for those that are not familiar with AWS support gives customer help on technical issues and also additional guidance to operate their infrastructures in the cloud. So there are different tiers, and the customer can choose a tier depending on the requirements, from basic, which is included in every account, to developer, business, and also enterprise.
Yeah, and regarding the enterprise support plan, we offer this for customers that are running business and mission critical workloads on AWS, like you, OutSystem guys. We focus on our proactive management to increase efficiency and availability of these workloads, and help you build and operate workloads following the AWS best practices. And finally, you could use enterprise support also to leverage the AWS expertise of support during your launch and migrations. But I think that the best role here is the technical account manager.
Yeah, the TAM is the primary point of contact who provides guidance and works with the customer to proactively optimize customer environments. And it's not only to help you when something is broken and when there is a support case, it's also helping you to prevent issues from arising. So it gives you proactive guidance and insights into different ways to optimize AWS. Also, it helps you to orchestrate and to give access to the full breadth and depth of technical expertise and to different resources, so you know all the best practice and recommendation to optimize your workloads.
Yeah, and apart from all of this, you got the concierge agent, which is a senior customer service professional who is familiar with your environment and can give you, can address your billing inquiries and account inquiries really quickly, so you can free your time to run your business. Apart from that, you also have the AWS IEM, which is the Infrastructure Event Management, which is like a short-term engagement with AWS support, and that you can use, for example, for whenever you are launching an advertising campaign or new product launches or migration to AWS. So this is basically available for enterprise support level, but it's also for business support with an additional purchase. During this event, you will get you will get resources from the AWS support. Will have a deep understanding of the use case and provide you architectural and scaling guidance during the event. Finally, but not last but not least, the Trusted Advisor is an application that is available for both business and enterprise customers. That what it does is it gives you recommendations for you in terms of saving money or like cost improvements, also for your system performance improvements, and if you have any security gap, it will announce it to you. How we do this? We just kind of aggregate all the operational history that we have been serving for 100,000 AWS customers during these years, and we kind of inspect your AWS environment and give you all these tips so you can use it accordingly.
Great. So certainly plenty of different types of support available to cater to organizations of all different sizes. And again, this is certainly a partnership that's been key for us and helping us to achieve scalability in the cloud. So a big thank you to our speakers today. You had an international cast on today. I know there were some audio quality issues, so I apologize for that. That's the challenge of having folks from Spain and from Portugal and a British-sounding guy in Texas on the line. So appreciate you bearing with us. I've got a couple of questions to get through that we'll start those in a second, but did want to kind of just put this up. And again, this webinar will be shared, as Dave said, through SD Times. We've got some resources available for you if you want to find out more about low code, some analyst reports that can help you better understand the challenges that low code platforms are designed to solve. You can check out our website. Of course, you can try out OutSystems for free. There's a free forever personal environment that you can sign up for to get into some visual models yourselves. We'll have the recording available of this webinar. We did a white paper recently where we scaled up to some 20 million supported users on mobile apps within this infrastructure that we've been looking at today, right? So, you know, very much demonstrating the ability to scale massively within the AWS framework. So some resources to check out, but let's finish out with a couple of questions here. So let's do the first one. Perhaps this is one that AWS you can handle. The question is, with AWS innovating so quickly, how do customers and partners keep up? You know, we saw a lot of the components today, and obviously that's something you mentioned, kind of a number of new ones since reInvent. How do people keep up with all of these different components and innovations?
Yeah, we get this one a lot. But to be fair, the customers really love our pace of innovation. That's one of the key reasons they moved to AWS. The pace of innovation of how we do things, and it's different from the rest of cloud providers. So first of all, you can do several trainings and support offerings from our that you can use to run up on these new services, coming from training and certification, boot camps, events like the Global Summit, or even reInvent. Or you just gonna go directly to AWS. You can, as one of the key pieces of enterprise support is the technical account manager, and that is the first resource you should engage whenever you want to know about something new. But you can also rely on us, solution architects or professional services, or even your account managers. So we are here for you. Also, there are hundreds of system integrators that can help you deploy and manage new solutions with these new services. But the best thing of all is, while a lot of customers really appreciate this pace of innovation, there is no real need to actually use these services. So if you don't want to use it, just don't. No, we don't force anyone to use it or pay for it.
Great. No, great. Obviously, a lot of experimentation, and making that easy is great for those who are trying to figure out the new technology. Certainly, you know, we've been involved in beta programs with you and use that to understand how we can introduce this innovation into our kind of managed services framework. One last question to finish this out, Hugo. I'll ask you this question. This is kind of about our infrastructure. Someone noticed that as we were showing the customer kind of slides, that we basically give each customer a dedicated VPC. Why do we do that? Can you provide a little bit of clarity around why we've taken that approach?
Sure. So, like Nacho said, the VPC, and it maps pretty well with the architecture shown by Nacho. The VPC brings us automatic isolation, network isolation between any customer network, and also brings us VPN and services, elastic IPs, private IPs. So it's like a core isolation services, network service that we rely on. Actually, we on top of that use at least one VPC per customer, but we also isolate each customer on their own AWS accounts, and this is just being extra precautious around security, meaning even though we don't use root accounts, any account is breached, it only affects one customer and not the whole customer base. It also makes easy the billing, internal billing for that AWS account. But the key core factor is that at any time, if a customer wants to continue to use our product, manage the infrastructure, we can simply detach the infrastructure and give the full control of the infrastructure to the customer, because we have a core pillar which is no lock-in for the customer, and if the customer has some specific non-functional requirement that they need to meet by taking control of the infrastructure, we can detach the infrastructure. So VPC and account isolation are around security. The VPC is a really network isolation services that we rely on.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, security is top of mind for many organizations. So it's the approach we adopted then to ensure that there's that level of isolation within the same cloud. So very well spotted by someone there on the webinar. So we're at the top of the hour. If you have more questions, certainly reach out to us. You can contact us through our website. But again, thanks to the speakers. Thank you for bearing with us with kind of the less than perfect audio today. And we appreciate you joining. But thank you, Yolanda. Thank you, Nacho. Thank you, Hugo.
Thank you.
And thank you, SD Times, for setting this up. Dave, do you want to close us out?
Yep. Sure. Thanks, Mike. That was a great presentation. Thanks, everybody. Certainly would like to thank OutSystems for sponsoring today's webinar and all the participants and the attendees. So until next time, I'm Dave Rubenstein. So long for now.